The night air was heavy in the alien city. Torches burned along the tall stone walls, and a crowd had gathered in the square. They whispered among themselves, waiting for the punishment to begin. At the center of the platform stood a young alien. Girl? Her hands bound by iron cuffs, her eyes lowered to the ground. She was thin, her skin pale from hunger, and her lips trembled as if she wanted to cry but could not. The overseer of debts, a tall figure with cold eyes, lifted his voice for all to hear. "This girl has failed to pay what she owes," he declared, his voice sharp and cruel. "Her punishment will be carried out tonight." The crowd gasped. People pushed closer to see her face, some mocking, some pitying, but no one daring to interfere. Her debts were too large, her fate already sealed. She had borrowed food and medicine when her family starved, but the lenders gave no mercy. Now they demanded payment in a way that broke her spirit. She would be rented to 10 men in one night, a punishment no one had survived with dignity. The girl lifted her eyes for just a moment. Her tears caught the light of the fire, and her heart pounded as the number 10 echoed again and again in her head. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run, but her legs were weak, her body chained. From the edge of the crowd, a human man stood silent, his clothes dusty from travel, his face half hidden under a hood. He was not from this city, not from this world, yet he stayed watching carefully, his eyes fixed only on her. The overseer raised a tablet of names. 10 men had already been chosen. Each one stepped forward slowly, their faces lit by greed and hunger. The crowd murmured louder. The air grew darker with tension. The girl's breath came short. Her body shook as if cold though the night was warm. Her punishment was not death, but something worse. Humiliation before all eyes, a reminder to others what happens when debts go unpaid. The human's fists tightened at his side. He had seen cruelty before, but this was different. This was public. This was meant to break a soul, and he felt anger stir inside him, though he dared not move yet. The overseer shouted, "Tonight she will learn the price of disobedience," his voice thundered. "She belongs to the will of 10. Her debts will be paid in suffering." The girl flinched at his words. Her chains rattled. The guards pushed her forward, forcing her to kneel on the wooden boards. The sound of iron striking wood echoed in the silence. The first of the 10 men stepped up, a smirk on his face. The crowd laughed cruelly, waiting to watch, but the girl's heart sank deeper. She closed her eyes, hoping the night would pass quickly. But then, a strange pause filled the air. The first man was not like the others. His steps were slower, his gaze steadier, and when he reached her side, he removed his hood. The crowd gasped again, for he was human. The alien overseer frowned, confused but silent, for the names were sealed, and no one could question the choice once written. The girl opened her eyes, meeting his for the first time. She expected cruelty. She expected the same hunger as the others, but instead she saw something she did not understand. Pity, sorrow, and something else hidden deep. The torches flickered as if the night itself held its breath. The crowd leaned closer, waiting for the first man to act, waiting for the punishment to begin. The girl's chains felt heavier, her chest rose, and fell in panic, and yet somewhere in the silence between them she felt a question stir. Who was this man, and why did his eyes look different from the rest? The overseer shouted for the night to continue, but the human did not move right away. His silence was louder than the crowd's noise, and in that moment, the girl realized that her story was about to change forever. The human stood before the girl, the firelight catching the lines of his face, his eyes locked with hers, and though the crowd cheered for cruelty, he stayed silent. The girl could not breathe. Her heart pounded against her chest. She had expected pain, laughter, and humiliation, but instead she found herself staring at a man whose expression was unreadable. The overseer grew impatient. His voice thundered across the square. "Do it, stranger. She is yours for this night." The crowd roared with excitement, waiting for the first act of punishment to begin. The girl trembled, her chains clinking as she lowered her head. She braced herself for the touch of violence, but none came. Instead, the human knelt beside her, his movement slow, careful as if he feared she would shatter. He whispered so low that no one else could hear. "Don't be afraid." His words were soft, almost carried away by the wind. Her eyes widened, confusion spreading through her like, "Fire? Why?" She whispered back, her voice breaking. "Why would you say that?" Her lips quivered as tears slipped free. She had expected cruelty, not kindness, not here, not tonight. The crowd shouted again, growing restless. Some laughed, some cursed, demanding action. The overseer narrowed his eyes, tapping his staff against the wood, his patience thin. The human leaned closer, his shadow covering her face. "Listen to me," he whispered. "I will not hurt you, not like they want. You are not property to me." The girl's breath caught. Her mind fought the words. Disbelief screamed louder than hope. Yet his voice carried a weight she could not ignore. She shook her head, her chains rattling. "If you refuse, they will kill you," she whispered, fear burning in her chest. "They will kill us both." The human's lips curved in the faintest smile, not of joy, but of defiance. "Then let them try," he murmured. "But while I breathe, you are safe." Her heart twisted at those words, a promise spoken in a place where promises were never made. The overseer slammed his staff down again, sparks of anger flying from his voice. "Begin," he roared, "or face the lash for disobedience." The human finally moved, his hand reaching for her arm. The crowd leaned forward in eager hunger, but his grip was gentle, steady. Nothing like the others who waited behind him. He helped her stand, lifting her carefully as though she were not a prisoner but something fragile, valuable. The girl's knees wobbled, unused to such treatment. Her eyes never leaving his. "Walk with me," he whispered again, guiding her to the shadows of the platform. The crowd mistook it for obedience. Laughter erupted, mocking her weakness. But she knew something had shifted. In the shadows, hidden from the overseer's full gaze, the human bent close to her ear. "I have a plan," he said, his voice quick and low. "But you must trust me." Her chest tightened. Trust was something she had forgotten, beaten out of her long ago, and yet, in his voice, in his eyes, there was no hunger, only fire. "What plan?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "To survive the night," he answered, his tone steady. "And when dawn comes, to escape." Her mind froze. Escape. The word was forbidden, dangerous, impossible. Yet the way he said it made her believe for a heartbeat that it could be real. The overseer barked again, demanding the first man take what was owed. The guards shifted, their eyes sharp, suspicion starting to stir. The human straightened, his face hardening. He wrapped his arm around her shoulders, and the crowd roared, believing they were watching the beginning of her punishment. But the girl felt no cruelty in his hold, only warmth, only a shield against the eyes of wolves. Her tears fell faster now, not just from fear, but from confusion. Why would a stranger defy the overseer? Why would a man risk his life for someone marked as worthless? The human whispered again, words only she could hear. "I need you to stay strong, no matter what you see, no matter what they say. Remember this. Tonight is not the end for you." Her lips trembled, her voice almost too soft to hear. "Why are you doing this?" His answer was simple, but his eyes burned with truth. "Because no one else will." The torches flickered again, as if the night itself leaned closer to listen. The crowd cheered blindly, unaware that the game had already changed. And in that moment, the girl understood. The first man who was supposed to break her spirit had instead given her the smallest spark of hope, a spark that could grow into fire. The overseer watched from his throne of stone, his suspicion deepening. His eyes narrowing on the human, he felt something was wrong. But for now, the ritual continued. Behind them, the second man waited impatiently, tapping his foot, eager for his turn, unaware that the chain of events had already shifted, unaware that the human standing before them was about to tear apart the rules written in blood. The night stretched on, thick with tension, the crowd's laughter echoing, the guards watching, the overseer waiting. And in the middle of it all, a girl and a man stood together, bound by chains yet holding on to something greater. The girl whispered one last time, her voice breaking under fear and hope. If you fail, we die. The human's reply was calm, steady as stone. Then we die together, but free. And for the first time in her life, she believed those words. The human's arms stayed firm around her shoulders as he led her deeper into the corner of the platform. The crowd believed they were watching punishment, but in truth, something else was happening. The girl's body shook, her mind torn between fear and the strange warmth of safety she felt beside him. His whisper echoed in her head. Escape. The word was dangerous, yet it clung to her heart like a spark refusing to die. The overseer's eyes narrowed, suspicion rising. He barked at the guards to stay alert. The square echoed with mocking laughter. Yet the girl noticed that the human's hand never tightened. To harm her, it steadied her trembling legs. Listen, he whispered again, his voice low enough to be drowned in the crowd's noise. I cannot fight them all tonight, but if you follow what I say, I can keep you safe until dawn. Her lips trembled as she whispered back. Why me? Why risk yourself for me? His eyes flicked to hers, shadows hiding the full depth of them. Because I have seen too many broken by this system, I will not let them take another. The girl's heart twisted. She wanted to believe him, but her chains reminded her of reality. The iron cuffs bit into her wrists, her debt written into her skin. Even if you mean it, they won't let you. You cannot stand against 10 men, against the overseer, against the guards. He leaned closer, his words sharp and steady. Then, I need more than belief. I need you to make a deal with me. Tonight we endure, and when the last torch fades, I take you away from this place. Her breath caught. The word deal struck her harder than any chain. In her world, deals meant more. Debts more pain. Yet his voice carried no greed, only risk, only defiance. I cannot promise to trust you, she whispered, fear rising in her throat. But I can promise not to fight you. His lips curved in the smallest nod. That is enough for now. The crowd shouted, calling for action, demanding the overseer push the night forward. Behind them, the second man slammed his fist against the railing, impatient, hungry, ready for his turn. The human new eyes were on him, so he tightened his hold around her, pulling her closer as if he claimed her in the way the overseer demanded. The crowd roared with delight, blind to the truth, but in the cover of shadows hidden from most eyes, his hand brushed against the lock on her cuffs, his fingers skillful, subtle. The girl's eyes widened in shock as she felt a faint click. The chain loosened just slightly. Her heart raced, her mind screamed not to hope, yet she could not deny what she felt, freedom, tiny, fragile, but real. What are you doing? She whispered, terror and wonder mixed in her voice. Preparing, he murmured, his eyes scanning the guards. A chain can only bind you if no one dares to break it, the overseer shouted again, his anger boiling. First man, finish your claim or face the whip. His staff slammed against the wood, sparks of fire spitting into the night. The human straightened, his face hardened. Into a mask, he pulled her against him roughly, making the crowd believe cruelty was happening, but her body felt no pain, only the steady shield of his chest. Her tears spilled, confusion clouding her thoughts. This man was turning the crowd's hunger into a cover for their plan, a cruel illusion hiding a chance for life. Do you see? He whispered into her hair. They watch, but they do not see. That is our weapon. Her voice trembled. And if they uncover us, his reply was firm. Then we fight in the shadows, not in the open. The guards muttered among themselves, unsure. The overseer's frown deepened. But the crowd's noise kept the deception alive. They laughed. They cheered, blind to the deal being made under their own eyes. The girl's chest rose and fell. Faster, heavier. She felt a new weight now, not just fear but responsibility. This man was tying his life to hers, and if she faltered, both would fall. You should let me die, she whispered suddenly. If I die, your risk ends, your life continues. The human's voice turned sharp, cutting through her despair. No. If you die, I die too, because I refuse to be another witness who turned away. Your life is now tied to mine, that is the deal. Her eyes burned with tears, her knees nearly buckling. No one had ever spoken for her like this. Not her lenders, not her neighbors, not even her family. Only this stranger who should have been her tormentor. The overseer shouted once more. Enough delays, bring the second forward. The square rumbled as the next man stepped up. The crowd, hungry for the night to continue. The girl's chains jingled as the human guided her back into the light. His grip still protective, though the world thought it cruel. She glanced at him once more, fear and hope twisting inside her chest, and in that moment, under the fire of the torches and the shadows of the crowd, a silent pact had been sealed. She would follow him, and he would fight for her. Together they would gamble against the rules written in blood. And though the crowd believed the punishment had only just begun, in truth, a rebellion had already started in the shadows. The girl's legs trembled as the human guided her back into the open light of the square. The chains on her wrists clinked softly, but she already knew one of the locks had been loosened in secret. Her heart pounded with every step. The overseer leaned forward on his stone chair, his eyes sharp like a predator. He could sense something unusual, but he could not yet see it. The crowd's loud cheers distracted him, their hunger drowning his suspicion for the moment. The second man approached, his heavy boots shaking the wooden platform. He was broad-shouldered, his grin wide and cruel. He looked at the girl the way wolves looked at wounded prey. The girl's stomach turned, her body froze. She wanted to step back, but the human's hand pressed gently against her arm, steadying her, silently reminding her of their deal in the shadows. "Do not falter," he whispered so low only she could hear. "Whatever happens, remember, I will not let them break you." The girl swallowed hard, her throat dry, her eyes filled with tears. She nodded slightly, forcing her legs not to collapse beneath her. The second man laughed loudly. "Weak already, she will not last the night," he mocked, reaching for her arm, but before he could, the human stepped between them, his movement smooth, natural, as if shielding her was part of the act. The crowd roared in amusement, thinking it was part of the punishment. They believed the human was displaying dominance while the truth hid beneath the performance. The girl's heart raced. Fear and confusion battled inside her chest, but a tiny spark of hope grew stronger. This man was not playing the same game as the others. He was rewriting the rules with every move. The overseer's frown deepened. Suspicion crawled like poison in his veins. He lifted his staff. "Do not delay," he barked. "Second man, take your claim. This debt is not for games." The human turned, his face calm though his heart beat like thunder. "Give her a moment," he said aloud, his voice strong, steady. The crowd laughed louder, mocking the idea of mercy, but no one noticed the chain of rebellion being woven in plain sight. The second man snarled, stepping closer. "Step aside, human, she is mine next." His hand reached forward, but the human's eyes narrowed. His arm shifted, blocking the way once more. The crowd gasped. The guard stiffened. Even the overseer froze for a second. The human's defiance was clear, yet it was cloaked under the performance of cruelty. No one could prove what they were. "Witnessing," the girl whispered, her voice shaking. "They will see through you." The human's lips tilted in the faintest smirk. "Then let them, but not tonight." The second man shoved forward, his patience burning away. The wooden boards groaned under the weight of his anger. The human did not move. Their shoulders nearly collided, tension thick as smoke in the air. The crowd grew restless, their cheers turning into shouts, demanding action, demanding the punishment continue. The girl's chains clinked again, her wrists aching, her heart screaming at her to run, but she could not. Not yet. She looked at the human and whispered so softly it was almost a prayer. "If you fall, I fall too." His eyes met hers for the briefest moment, steady, fierce, unbroken. "Then stand with me," he whispered back. The overseer slammed his staff against the platform, fire sparks leaping into the night. "Enough," he roared. "The debt will be collected or blood will be spilled." The guards tightened their grips on their weapons, their eyes locked on the human. The crowd went wild, drunk on the promise of violence. The human finally moved, not to fight, but to twist the illusion further. He grabbed the girl by the shoulders and pulled her close. The crowd screamed in savage delight, believing he was carrying out the punishment at last. But the girl felt no pain, only the careful grip of protection, only the shield of his body hiding her trembling form from the crowd's gaze. Tears spilled from her eyes, dripping onto the wood below. She whispered again, "Why me? Why now? His answer came like iron. Because between chains and choice, I will always choose you. Her breath caught, her chest heaving with emotion. The words cut through her despair like a blade of light. The second man growled, frustrated, sensing something he could not name. He slammed his fist into the wooden boards, splitting them slightly. The overseer's patience thinned further, his eyes burning with suspicion. The girl's mind swirled, her fear still sharp, but her heart no longer completely drowned in it. For the first time in her life, she had been given a choice. Not freedom yet, but the choice to believe, to follow, to trust. The crowd continued to roar, blind to the storm forming before their eyes. The overseer finally leaned back, his lips curling in cruel amusement. Very well, if the first man delays, then let the second join. Let them both take what they are owed. The girl's blood ran cold, her heart dropped. The crowd exploded into a frenzy of excitement. The rules had shifted into something even more dangerous. The human's jaw tightened, his eyes locked on the overseer. He knew the game had just become harder. The shadows that once shielded them now threatened to swallow them whole. The girl whispered, almost breaking, "What do we do now?" His voice, steady as ever, came like an anchor. "We hold to the deal no matter the cost." And as the second man stepped forward again, the night grew darker, the chains heavier, but the choice between despair and defiance had already been made. The square burned with noise, the crowd screamed for more, their hunger echoing against the stone walls. The overseer leaned back with cold delight, and the second man stepped closer with a cruel smile. The girl's knees shook, her chains rattled, her breath caught in her throat. She wanted to vanish, to fall through the wooden boards and disappear from every eye. But the human's hand stayed steady on her arm, anchoring her in the storm. The overseer had changed the rule, now the second man could join. The girl felt terror grip her like icy water. This was worse than she imagined. Yet when she looked at the human, his face was calm, his eyes unshaken. The second man sneered, "Step aside, stranger, or I will crush you first." His heavy hand reached for the human's shoulder, but the human moved with quiet strength. His body shifted, blocking the girl once more. The crowd roared, some laughing, some shouting, but none of them knew the secret hidden in his silence. The girl whispered, her voice breaking, "You cannot fight them all. You will die. Why keep risking yourself?" The human leaned close. His words almost stolen by the noise. "Because I am not who they think I am." Her eyes widened, confusion mixing with fear. "What do you mean?" He tightened his grip on her, shielding her from the second man's reaching hands, his voice steady as stone. "I once wore their chains too." Her breath froze, her mind stilled. "You," she whispered. "You were punished like this." The human's jaw clenched, memories flickering in his eyes. "Years ago, I refused an overseer's order. I protected a girl they wanted broken. They made me pay, night after night, until they believed I was finished." Her tears blurred her vision. She shook her head, unable to believe. "And yet you lived." "I lived," he said, his voice heavy. "But not whole. They took my family, my home, everything. I wandered from world to world, a ghost carrying scars no one sees." The second man shoved harder, snarling. The overseer barked for the ritual to continue. The guard stepped closer, ready to drag the human down if he delayed further. The girl's heart twisted. She had seen cruelty all her life, but never had anyone revealed their wounds to her like this. Never had anyone stood between her and the storm. "Why tell me this now?" she whispered, choking on tears. His eyes burned with quiet fire. "Because I will not watch it happen again. I swore if I ever saw another chained like me, I would fight, even if it kills me." The girl's lips trembled, her voice cracked. "But you cannot save me alone." His voice dropped to a whisper only she could hear. "That is why I unlocked your chain. When the moment comes, you will run, and I will hold them back." Her body shook violently, fear and hope colliding in her chest. She wanted to scream no. She wanted to beg him not to sacrifice himself. But the words stuck in her throat. The crowd screamed louder, thinking they were watching dominance, but all they were seeing was defiance painted as cruelty. The overseer slammed his staff down again, fire leaping from its tip. Enough delays. The debt is paid tonight. Or blood spills on my platform. The second man lunged, reaching for the girl, but the human moved with startling speed, his hand catching the man's wrist, twisting it until bone cracked. The crowd gasped, some laughing at the violence, others stunned. The girl's eyes widened in horror, but the human's calm voice reached her. Stay still. Do not show fear. They must believe this is part of the act. The second man howled, stumbling back, his pride wounded more than his body. The overseer leaned forward, suspicion sharpening. Stranger, you play dangerously, he hissed. The human forced a cruel smile, his eyes never leaving the overseer. I do what is owed, nothing more. The crowd cheered, blind to the truth, believing the punishment was unfolding just as planned. The girl leaned against him, her body weak, her mind spinning. She whispered again, desperate. If you die here, your secret dies too. He looked down at her, his face softening for the briefest moment. No, my secret already lives in you now if you escape. Then my fight continues. Her tears spilled harder, burning her cheeks. She wanted to argue, to scream, to beg him not to bear this weight, but the overseer's sharp eyes pinned them, leaving her no time for words. The guards circled, their hands resting on blades. The second man growled and demanded to continue. The crowd's hunger boiled louder. The girl realized the truth of the human secret. He was not just a stranger who pitied her. He was a survivor who had already faced the same darkness, a man who had broken once, but refused to break again. And now, for reasons she could not understand, he had chosen her as the one he would save. Her lips parted, her voice a broken whisper. Then I will not run alone. If I fall with you. His eyes met hers, steady, fierce, unshaken. Then we fall together, but not tonight. The crowd screamed for blood. The overseer raised his staff to signal the next step. The guards shifted closer, and the girl's heart hammered with one truth clear in her chest. The night was no longer about punishment, it was about survival, and the secret the human carried had already changed everything. The square grew louder, the crowd's shouts, shaking the air, torches burned brighter as if feeding on the tension. The overseer's eyes narrowed like knives, and the guards tightened their grip on weapons. The girl's heart raced. She could hardly breathe. The second man stood clutching his wrist, rage in his eyes, humiliated before the crowd, and the overseer's patience had nearly snapped. Stranger, the overseer growled, his voice like thunder. You test my mercy. Obey the order or your blood will soak this platform. The human stood tall, his hood now pushed back, his face revealed fully under firelight. He did not flinch, his voice steady. I have obeyed enough. No whip, no chain will bend me again. The crowd gasped, half confused, half thrilled. Some thought it was part of the cruel act. Others sensed rebellion. Their cheers turned into wild noise, a storm of excitement and fear. The girl trembled, her body pressed close to his side. She whispered, They know. They see through you now. He leaned his head slightly, his voice calm. Then it is time. The overseer slammed his staff down, sparks bursting into the night. Guards, seize him! He roared. 2 guards rushed forward, blades flashing. The crowd roared louder, expecting blood, but the human moved with startling precision. His hand shot out, catching one guard's wrist, twisting until the blade fell. His knee struck the second guard's stomach, sending him stumbling back. The crowd erupted, some cheering the violence, others shrieking in shock. The overseer's face darkened with fury. The girl's chains rattled as she tried to step back, fear clawing at her chest, but the human pulled her behind him, shielding her with his body. The second man lunged again, anger boiling in his eyes, but the human kicked the broken board from the platform into his chest, knocking him down before he could reach her. The square shook with chaos, laughter, screams, shouts. The crowd no longer sure if this was punishment or rebellion. The overseer rose to his feet, his staff glowing with red fire. Enough. He thundered. No man defies the law and lives. The girl clung to the human's arm, her voice trembling. We cannot win. They are too many. The human's eyes burned steady and fierce. We don't need to win tonight. We need only to last until dawn. Her heart pounded, remembering his words. Escape when the moment comes. She realized that moment was near. The overseer raised his staff, fire leaping higher. The human's grip on her wrist tightened, his voice quick and low. When I move, run. Do not look back. Tears streamed down her cheeks. No, not without you. His eyes softened for a brief instant. I will follow, but first I must break the circle. The girl's chest heaved. She could not argue. The noise of the crowd drowned her voice. The overseer shouted again. The guards rushed from every side. The human acted first, his body a blur of motion. He ripped the fallen guard's blade from the ground and slashed the chains around the girl's wrists. The metal shattered, sparks flying into the night. The girl gasped, her wrists free for the first time in years. She stared at him in shock, her heart screaming. Freedom. Run, he barked, his voice sharp and full of command. The guards closed. In steel flashing, the crowd howling with madness, the overseer's staff glowing brighter. The girl hesitated, her body frozen between fear and the pull of freedom. I cannot leave you, she cried. The human shoved her toward the edge of the platform, his voice fierce. You have no choice, run! Her legs moved before her mind could stop them. She stumbled down the wooden steps, the crowd parting in confusion. Some reaching for her, others cheering, thinking it was all part of the cruel game. The human turned, blade in hand, facing the circle of guards alone. His chest rose and fell with steady defiance. You will not touch her again, he declared. The overseer snarled, his staff raised high. Lightning crackled from its tip, striking the boards near the human's feet. The wood splintered, smoke rising into the night. The crowd screamed in delight, drunk on the sight of chaos. The girl pushed. Through the sea of bodies, her eyes wide with tears, every step a battle against fear. She glanced back once, her heart nearly breaking as she saw him surrounded, yet standing tall. The overseer's voice cut through the night. Kill him. The guards rushed forward, blades raised. But the human fought like a storm, every strike quick, precise, his movements honed by years of surviving chains and cruelty. Still, there were too many. The girl's heart screamed inside her chest. She could not abandon him, not when he had given her back her freedom. She stopped running, her body trembling, her voice breaking as she cried, No, I will not leave you. The human's eyes caught hers for one fleeting second, fierce and desperate. You must, he shouted, his blade cutting another guard down, but she shook her head, tears blurring her vision. If you fall, I fall too. The overseer's staff burned brighter. The guards pressed closer. The night itself seemed to tremble. And in that moment, the girl realized the turning point had come. Whether they lived or died, nothing would ever be the same again. The square was chaos. Torches shook in the wind. The crowd screamed with wild voices, some in fear, some in excitement. The overseer's staff burned with red fire, and the guards closed in like wolves. The human stood in the center, his blade steady in his hand, sweat glistening on his brow. Yet his eyes never wavered. He fought not for survival alone, but for the girl who stumbled through the crowd, torn between running and staying. Run, he shouted again, his voice cutting through the storm. You must go. But the girl shook her head violently, tears streaming down her face. I will not leave you. If you die here, then I die too. The human's chest ached, not from wounds, but from the weight of her words. He had expected fear. He had expected her to vanish into the night, but instead she stood, weak and trembling, yet defiant. The overseer's fury boiled. His voice thundered, Seize them both, let their blood water the stone. The guards surged forward, steel glinting under torchlight. The human roared, his blade moving with desperate speed. He slashed one down, spun, and struck another, his movements sharp and unyielding. The crowd erupted, half cheering, half panicking, no longer certain if they were watching punishment or rebellion. The girl stumbled back onto the platform, her hands shaking, her wrists still raw from broken chains, but her heart pulled her toward him. Her voice cracked as she cried, I cannot be free without you. The human turned his head for one brief moment, their eyes locking, and in that gaze, something passed between them. An unspoken truth, a vow born in fire and chains. The overseer raised his staff high, lightning sparking at its tip. The air crackled, the crowd gasped. "No man breaks my law and lives," he shouted, his staff crashing down. The human shoved the girl aside. The bolt of fire struck the boards where she had stood. Flames burst upward, smoke curling into the night. The platform shook. The girl coughed, her chest burning from the smoke, but she crawled back toward him, her voice breaking. "Please stop, they will kill you." He bent down, his hand gripping hers tightly, his voice low but fierce. "Then let them kill me, but they will never take you again." Her tears blurred the world. She clung to his hand, trembling. Why? Why give everything for me? His eyes softened for the briefest moment, his lips trembling with truth. "Because I love you." The words struck her harder than any chain, harder than the overseer's fire. Her heart stopped, then pounded so hard it hurt. Love. Something she had never been given, something forbidden in this place of cruelty. The overseer roared with, "Silence, you dare speak of love in my square. She is dead, she is nothing, she is mine." The human stood tall, his voice louder than the overseer's fury. "No, she is not yours, she is not dead, she is not a toy, she is life, she is hope, and she is mine." The crowd gasped, stunned into silence. Never before had anyone spoken against the overseer like this. Never had anyone dared to call a chained girl more than property. The overseer's staff glowed brighter. Fire swirling, the guards rushed forward once more, but the girl rose to her knees, her arms spread wide before the human, her voice trembling but strong. "If you kill him, then kill me too, because I will never belong to your rules again." The square froze. The guards hesitated, even the overseer's fury cracked for a moment. The human wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close, his blade raised high, his voice steady. "We stand together no matter what comes," the overseer screamed with fury. Unleashing the power of his staff, fire roared toward them, but at that instant the crowd shifted. Whispers spread. Gasps turned into shouts. Some voices cried, "Let them go." Others cried, "Enough blood." The overseer's power faltered. The fire splintered against the air, his authority shaken. The girl clung to the human, her voice breaking with hope. "They are changing, they see us." The human's chest heaved, his blade still steady, his eyes never leaving the overseer. "Then tonight we win, not by blood, but by truth." The overseer shouted for silence, but his voice cracked under the weight of the crowd's shifting cries. The guards hesitated, unsure. The second man stepped back, fear finally breaking through his rage. The girl's hand held the human's tightly, her voice a whisper. "You gave me back more than freedom, you gave me back myself." He leaned his forehead to hers for one heartbeat, his voice soft. "And you gave me back my reason to live." The crowd's shouts rose, drowning the overseer's commands. The torches flickered wildly. The guards lowered their blades. The law of fear cracked. Under the weight of defiance, the overseer screamed in rage, but his power broke. His staff sputtered, sparks fading, his rule weakened by the very people who once obeyed him. The human and the girl stood together on the broken platform, scarred, trembling, but unbroken. Their love born in chains, their vow stronger than fear. The night had been meant to punish, but it ended with rebellion. The overseer's law shaken, the crowd's silence filled with questions, and two souls who had no right to survive found each other against every rule. The girl's voice carried softly, a whisper yet strong enough to echo. "They tried to rent me to 10, but the first man they gave me chose love instead." The human held her close, his eyes burning with defiance. "And no rule in this world will ever break that."